So it is my pleasure to announce the speakers for today, why we are all here to learn from these amazing creative entrepreneurs. So welcome Ash Phillips, co-founder of Six Cinquième, Mitch Martin, owner of September Surf Cafe, and also part of the crew behind STEM Bar, and also making surfboards at Brainchild Surf, and David Rabanera, co-founder and marketing director of Theos Montreal. And then I also wanted to shout out to Ilias, Anais, and Trav for the videography, the photography, and the beats. And last but not least, thank you, Ben, the visionary behind Creative Entrepreneurs, our host, and he's also the host of the Living Your Greatness podcast. So enjoy, have a good night. Good night, sorry, good afternoon.
Thank you so much, Desiree. And again, welcome to everyone in this room. You're all important, and I want you to know that. And I just want to add one thing before we hop in. All three of these panelists mean a lot to me, a lot to my heart. I still remember when Mitch had started September and seeing where it has gone from September Surf to September in the last almost decade. Let's give him a little round of applause. It's been pretty beautiful to see. David and our relationship is a little newer, but very interesting as well, because when David and I didn't know each other, I'm really involved in the running community. Movement is really important to me, and to share that with others, and seeing how does this streetwear thrift shop in Montreal do something beyond being a clothing line and actually touching like the community. So seeing what they've done with brands like CLA and other kind of collabs and the way that they educate, and it's just really, really cool. You feel your vibe, and I love that about you guys and your whole team. So let's give David a round of applause from Theos. And then Ash, our relationship is a little newer, but it's been really cool to immediately follow your work through DJ Trav, who actually brought to my attention what you've been doing, not only with Montreal brands, but even beyond outside. So I really, really appreciate that. So let's give her a round of applause as well. So I'm super stoked. I don't know about you guys. I'm fired up because we all have something to learn, especially when the topic comes branding. If we think about our own businesses or creative passions that we're trying to make a business, how do we brand more authentic? How do we be more ourselves? And let's be real, it's not easy. It's tough fucking shit. So if we could just start off before we even hop into the theme today, I think it's better to hear more about your stories, who you are, as well as your businesses. So in any order, if we could start off just hearing more about you and your story and your business. So does anyone want to start?
Thank you. Hey, everyone. Super happy to be here. Thank y'all for showing up today. Rainy day, but because you showed up, the sun came out. So thank y'all for being here. So a little bit about myself. I started out as a graphic designer in like 2016, and I met my co-founder Miro, who's actually here in the room, and we immediately started collaborating and working together on different projects, and eventually just joined forces and decided to launch our own creative agency called Six Cinquième, mainly because the industry itself didn't feel super welcoming to us. And we wanted to create a space where other people who come from non-traditional backgrounds can take up space and have a voice and have their creativity be valued. And so that's the reason why we started, and we were like, let's create what we want for ourselves. So that's why we created Six Cinquième. And essentially what we do at Six Cinquième is, right now we call ourselves a strategic brand consultancy, and we help companies, organizations, businesses develop their branding, develop their brand identity. We help them position themselves in the market. How do you connect with your audience? We help them answer those questions, and also like define like what is my essence as a business and as a brand, and like what is the contribution and impact that I want to have in the world. So we're a little bit like business therapists in a sense. That's like a comment that we get a lot whenever we're working with our clients. And yeah, some of the clients we've worked with include nonprofits like the Michael Jean Foundation to local brands doing impactful work like New Room, which is a community building and DEI company, as well as some companies in the entertainment space like Westbrook Inc., which is the media company owned by Will and Jada Pinkett Smith. So that was really a big deal for us when we were able to get that. So yeah, that gives you a little background on me and what I do, and I'll pass the mic now to David. Take it away.
Thank you. Thank you. So yeah, my name is David. Thank you guys all for coming today. It's my first panel, so I'm a little shy, I'm not gonna lie. So basically, I'm the marketing director of Theos Montreal. We sell secondhand clothing. We're big on the vintage space, but we don't like to consider it vintage just because we're actually really niche. We like to consider our clothes more secondhand, curated streetwear. We're really big on like the hip hop stuff, a lot of the 80s, 90s, 2000s. We're really influenced by that. So it trickles down to the clothes that we select. Initially, people thought it was like a closet, but we really like to grow and to go into bigger things. The goal is distribution, but just to give you guys a ballpark idea, it's imagine all of the clothes that that are created in this world. It's a very fast-paced market, but the same amount of clothes that we produce nowadays, and it's a 1 year span, is the same as we would make in like the 1999 to like let's say 1997, right? There's a lot of good gold in there, and we'd like to highlight those things. But other than that, you like growing up thrifting a lot, you start to like see what's fresh, and that's kind of how like you create taste. I really like clothes, as you guys can see. Like branding is really big. For us, our biggest influence aside from taste is community. I'm Filipino, so I grew up a lot in the community setting. So our branding, the best way I like to kind of like describe it is we like to tell you what we like. We like Polo, we like Nike, we like Adidas, we like going to September. That's why we made a video with Mitch, right? Same thing with CLA. I did a lot of retail growing up, so seeing CLA hats was a big thing for me. I don't like 5 panels. They look really weird on my head, but I like the brand, and working with them is a great blessing. So like, good idea of what Theos is all about. So yeah.
Hey everyone, my name is Mitch. Thank you for coming. Thank you, Ben. I'm really honored that you invited me to be here because, I'm sure you guys feel, I definitely suffer from imposter syndrome, and yeah, I think everything that happened at September, anyways, has always been just a bit of a fluke, and I don't know how it happened. It just kind of happened. It has been a while, and the first years were definitely difficult. But my background story. About 25 years ago, I went to Australia to visit my brother, and I started surfing, and I just became fully addicted with the sport and the culture around it. And I spent pretty much the next 10, 15 years just traveling whenever I had money, racking up credit card debt, going surfing around the world. And one day I was like, I need to fucking do something with my life. So I was living in Vancouver at the time, and I got into the coffee scene and saw the West Coast sort of coffee scene in Seattle and Portland and Vancouver that I found was very different from Montreal. There was a community. You walk into a cafe and there was like, the music was loud and not everyone was on their computer, and it was just really fun to be there. At the same time, I was getting into building surfboards with a friend of mine. So when I moved back to Montreal in 2015, I was like, we're going to open a coffee shop with a surfboard workshop inside the cafe. And it was kind of a crazy idea, but 2 of my friends were on board, and we did it. The 3 of us did it together. And so I was all about making boards. I wanted to make surfboards and have a coffee shop outside where you can get coffee. People can come in and out and have a lot of events, throw a lot of parties, bring people together. That was the whole idea. And then 2 years after that, we realized that the surfboard workshop in the cafe was a weird idea, and it was a lot of fun, but we were not making any money, and so we need to change it up. So we converted the workshop into a kitchen. Found a really good chef that we partnered with. He just fell from the sky. It was a friend of a friend, like the perfect partnership, who happened to be a very, very like talented cook. So now it's become more of a brunch spot. And I continue to make surfboards under a new brand called Brainchild, and that's kind of what I spend most of my time doing these days. And still very involved in the cafe, but less and less. We have a team now that kind of runs it, and they're really good. So yeah, that's the story behind September. And then we have a STEM bar next door, a little wine bar. That's also a lot of fun. Kind of it was like the nighttime version of September. Yeah.
I always love hearing stories. I think it's just like it's so easy to think of where people are now and then forget really there was a beginning, right, an origin. So I appreciate you guys, sharing that, and also even going off of what you just said before about imposter syndrome, right? When we're looking to grow or we're looking to maybe have more impact or influence, we're like, well, we're not where we're going yet, and that's okay, right? Because it does take time. And so I kind of want to let's kind of backtrack. If we were able to think right now from start to where you are now, what is something that you've learned specifically, Ashley, around like branding yourself and your brand that you so deeply, passionately love, the lessons that you've learned? So from when you started to where you are now, because it is kind of interesting to look back and think, holy shit, I would have did that differently. But I didn't know because I made the mistakes I had to make to learn, to then grow, to get me where I am today. So feel free, whoever wants to go first. There's no specific order.
I think for me, probably the biggest lesson is storytelling. I'm really big on time. I think like that's the only thing that like doesn't stop, right? So you kind of learn only through time about certain things and certain lessons, and story is a big thing. When we opened up on Mount Royal in the plateau, it was really different for us because kids coming from DG, you're kind of like not accustomed to speaking French and blah blah blah. So it was a bit of a different crowd, and like it's almost been like 4 years we've been in that space, so you kind of like understand the community and you start appreciating it, and like you kind of have like this new story to tell about new people going to the blog and appreciating it. We've done events a lot over there, met a lot of cool people, and reflecting that towards your brand I think is important, just because not corny, but you can say that without them it's like you don't exist. It's very true, but it's like you can't. You need to say it. Somebody needs to show it. Somebody needs to say it, and being the source of that event or that vibe and documenting that, I think it's a great way to stay true to you.
So for me, my answer is kind of similar to yours, but a little bit different. Because when we started out, we were very like we always say like we're artists first and like business people second. And when you're an artist, you tend to create for yourself. And so like when I started out, it was like the business we were doing was coming more from like a place of ego of like, oh, I want to do something cool. I want my work to be super dope and look really cool and be really impressive. And at some point we realized that what's more important, yes, you want to do cool work for yourself, but you also want to provide value to the people that you're working with. And so that's why I say it's a bit similar, because it's like that storytelling element is your way of providing value. And we had to kind of reevaluate like, how do we want to provide value beyond just looking cool? And that's a question that I think a lot of brands need to think about as well, because when we think about branding, it can sometimes be very like surface level of I want to look cool, I want clicks, I want to appear a certain way, but you have to think a little bit deeper about like what value do you really want to add in people's lives and like what effect do you want to have. So that's what I would say was a learning thing for me from when I started out really focused more on design and being an artist to now like more on branding, like how do we want to provide value to our clients. And yeah, that's what I would say.
For me, what I've learned is just, I guess, to really just do what makes me happy, and hopefully that will resonate with other people, and really just follow your heart. And just with September, for example, like we called it September because that's hurricane season on the East Coast, and that's when, for me, that's my favorite month of the year because that's when we get to go surfing and camping on the coast, and it's a lot of fun and makes me think of coffee and the weather and everything. And I think everyone, I was like, well, I think that's cool. Hopefully someone else thinks that's cool. And so it was a lot of just kind of, I guess, like scratch your own itch and just do what it just felt right, you know? So, yeah.
I appreciate those answers, and it makes me kind of think now, just to guide the conversation. I was doing some research last night, and it's like 86% of people that decide to now buy and make a decision as millennials or Gen Zs, it's usually because they connect emotionally to that brand, right? So they feel the authenticity, they feel the genuineness, they feel the value. They feel like they know you, that they can almost tell your story. And so I'm curious, like just knowing that, like authenticity, I'm curious to just get each of your opinions on what authenticity means to you, but also how you would connect that to branding before we go any deeper.
What authenticity means to me. I think authenticity means vulnerability, being willing to share the vulnerable parts of yourself, whether that be a connection to like your own personal story, like Mitch, for example, I think is such a great example of like, oh, I kind of just winged it, but really it was like you connected and resonated with something and you like shared that with others and that resonated with other people and people feel that you really care about what you're doing and you really care about your story and it's coming from an authentic place. Like, so yeah, that's what I would say. Vulnerability.
Authenticity is like, it's just, you just gotta be yourself, you know? In a way where you can't be afraid to be judged, or even on a branding perspective, like you need to do those hot takes, or you need to, not stir up the pot, but I don't know how to explain it. It's like the best way to do it in like a marketing term is you can respect all the data, and let's say you can go down to the metrics and see that maybe your Monday post is a good day to post, but sometimes like Mondays doesn't have to be like a informative post. Mondays could just be a meme, like you feel that you want to post that meme, and like if people understand that in terms of your branding, they're gonna think it's Monday's a meme day, you just got to be true to you, and then people are gonna start, understanding and connecting the dots.
Yeah, I agree with what both you guys said. You guys said it so well. It's hard to really add to that. And just without repeating what I said earlier, do what you love, and be unapologetic about it too. There were times in my business where I was trying to please too many people, and that's when I felt like the least happy at what I was doing. If I was just like, no, this is how it should be done, and you definitely can't please everybody. So I think you just got to find that small group of people that will understand what you're doing.
Yeah, I appreciate those answers. I wanted to kind of break the ice and go there just because it's so easy to put on a facade or a mask or show all the good that's going, or again, it's going to be intentional and stuff like that, but also to the other side, just be freaking human, right? Be you, and to showcase that through different ways of creativity and your brand and kind of knowing thyself, right? And so, it's interesting to hear your perspectives on that. The common ground that I heard was really, being yourself, being your authentic version. And I find in entrepreneurship or creativity, that can be very challenging, right? Because we're always growing, we're always learning, we're always like, oh my God, man, like you're learning more and more about yourself, right? Even as just a person outside of even titles aside, we're always learning about ourselves. So when did you guys realize, like, you do realize in your business, just like even as a person, that we have gifts that we're really good at, strengths, and we have weaknesses. So if you were to think about right now, maybe gifts or strengths, it could either be like your own personal identity or even your business, as well as what your partners, what you're really good at, and how you leverage that, because that is being you, but that's really showcasing your true authentic self to stand out. So I'm curious to know, like, I don't know if you guys have taken the time to think about that, but what are your strengths? What are your gifts? Because there's probably a reason why each of your businesses have resonated so much with other people, and why it's been attractive, and why it's stood out over, like for Mitch's take, there's so many good cafes in Montreal. Why is it that September stands out, that I have friends in Toronto that know about you? I have friends in Chelsea, Quebec that know about you. For Theos, I have friends from Vancouver that know about you. So even beyond the in-person community. So I'll let you guys say what you think it is.
I can't pinpoint like a strength or a weakness. Definitely, you need to be aware of the tools that you have in front of you. You know what I mean? And for us, for instance, like the strength is that, bro, Theos would love to go like strictly online, bar, right? That's great, cool. The thing is, people love online but don't know how to use it. You know what I mean? And when I say understand your tools, is there's Google, there's friends, there's community, there's ChatGPT, there's things like that. That I think for us, I think a strength is to know your tools and kind of like do your own homework when it comes to these things. As a business, I think the cool thing about us is that I'm very happy to know that we're very resilient. I'm a co-founder as well as 3 of my other partners, including my brother and 2 of our other homies that we grew up with. We're all Filipino. We all didn't go to business school, but we're still here. So you know what I mean. Tools is something that you definitely need to like understand and know how to use. And I don't know, man. Just like that's I think the only way for me to know that you could at least keep going.
My strengths. What can I say about my strengths? I don't know. I mean, I think probably all of my strengths have had some influence on my business and my brand in some way, maybe in ways that I'm not even conscious of. I would say I'm definitely a perfectionist, which can be a strength and a weakness at the same time, especially like in business. You can't always be a perfectionist, but I'm also very adaptable and flexible. So I can be a perfectionist, but I know when to kind of like let go. Another thing I would say is to follow like your intuition. Following your intuition. I'm very intuitive when it comes to like the work that we do, the creative work that we do, and knowing what hits and what doesn't. I guess maybe you could call it taste, and that's probably one of your strengths is taste as a curator. But like, yeah, like having good taste and just like following your intuition as well, because we always get comments on like the quality of our work and how good it is, and that's a reflection of all those things, the perfectionism, the ability to adapt, and your personal taste, and knowing like what works and what doesn't, and kind of being able to kind of make certain decisions and like take certain risks. So yeah.
For me, I think I've realized now over time, it took a while for me to understand this, but I like to build things. I'm not so good at actually running them. So what I've learned is find people around you that are good at what you suck at, you know? Because I realized I'm not organized enough to be on top of scheduling, ordering, there is a lot of day-to-day repetitive sort of mundane stuff you need to do to run a restaurant. And some people love that. Some people want to show up and just do the same thing every day, have a checklist and work through it. Some people just aren't capable of doing that. A friend of mine told me a good quote. I don't know where he heard this, but he was like, everyone's either a pirate or a farmer or somewhere in the middle, you know? Like the farmer loves to just show up and rinse and repeat every day and follow the same pattern, and the pirate always looking for new adventure. And I'm definitely more on the pirate side, so I've learned that I gotta hire farmers. And I think that I like building things. I think I'm good at finding the right people. So that's been, I think, the key to success at September, and every project we've done is just there's the people come together. I'm like the matchmaker. So I think being a positive influence, just try to be really nice to people, treat people well. Something I'm trying to now teach my kid, and I find that's such a good thing to just do in life. Just be a good human, and it goes a long way. Yeah.
Just hearing you guys share a little bit more about yourself, things that you know about your business. My next question is kind of a little bit more kind of fun here. Sometimes we don't realize, but sometimes there's other people that have inspired us. And then we don't realize, but we take little things of what they do. And we are being our authentic self, but it's almost like, oh, I really, I like, for example, like myself, if I kind of lead here, when I was in grade 11, I was listening to a lot of Tim Ferriss, right? So I really liked his intellectual side, but also just how curious he was about all types of high performers, right? And so what I'm trying to bring this to is when it comes to branding, sometimes we don't realize, but there's many different types of brands out there that even ourselves that we resonate with. And I kind of want to tie off, like David, you and I were actually chatting when we were at September, and he was going on, like you should have saw his eyes were lighting up and just so passionate, but he was so lit up about like all these brands that had an impact on him that then made his own brand even more impactful of how they educate, which not all, let's say, thrift shops do. So now going back to my question, it's more, who are brands that you admire that have maybe led or had an impact on you that you don't realize, but you've actually, in some ways, maybe have followed those steps? And so you also see it too, like, I know I'm going more life here, but you even see it in sports. Sometimes you see a hockey player, they tuck their jersey the same way Wayne Gretzky tucked, right? It's like they're a completely different player. They are their own self, yet they do something similar to who maybe they look up to or they admire. So I'm curious to know what are some brands that have really resonated or that you've learned from, and maybe there's things that you've integrated into your business.
I got one. One that jumps to mind for me is Patagonia. Nice. Yvon Chouinard, the way he runs his business, the goal was never to make money. And he actually is like against the idea of making money. I mean, not that against it, but like he's trying to give it all back is what I'm trying to say. And he wrote a really good book called Let My People Go Surfing. And that resonated with me. It was just build a good team and treat them really well and trust them and let them do their thing, kind of step away. So Patagonia for me, yeah.
A lot of brands definitely inspired me. The typical stuff. Just to give you guys more of a background on Theos, like we registered the business in 2020, but we started in like 2017. So we started Theos at these small events. There's a couple of stores now that you probably know, like Flow Market was one of them. Fleek Market was another. I'm more appreciative of my experience at Fleek Market just because I've met a lot of the people I know now or my mentors over there. But yeah, man, we started thrifting in like 2017. We were looking for like a lot of Nike, a lot of Puma, a lot of Adidas. Those are the stuff that we resonate with. Played a lot of sports, so then automatically like I love LeBron James, or like I love Kobe, you know, and like it when it comes to branding, it's so cool for me to like see the impact of individuals within brands, because it just means that that product that you get kind of like goes out of just why you're wearing it. It's because how you feel. Like I played in Kobe's, you know, like I don't say I played in like Nikes. I played in Kobe's. I played in LeBron's. But yeah, definitely those brands. Now I really like the local brands. Like John is a really big one. They're really big on documenting and like you know, and analyzing. We're really big on that too. We highlight the past a lot. It's a great feeling. But I don't know. It's just like community brands too. Like there's this other store in the Philippines called Titan, where it's a retail store, but it's also a barbershop. You know, it's like conceptual. But it's mainly the feeling that you get out of these brands that resonate with us and automatically influence us. It's just a feeling, you know.
Um, like what both of you are saying is very interesting, because it really shows you like the impact that a brand can have. And I just want to like take a moment to highlight that, how your brand can have such a huge impact and influence on like individuals in ways that you might not even realize. And I think it's so important to be really, really intentional about that. But yeah, to answer the question, I wouldn't say that there was a brand that inspired the business to start, but I think like when we did start, there were some local brands that we, you know, are aware of and became aware of that operate in similar industries, like Never Was Average, which do a lot of really intentional community work, and they also do productions, and they design like community experiences. So we've been collaborating with them, and just their whole intentionality. They're really, really big on being super intentional, and that's something that is really important to keep in mind and adopt in your process. There's also other brands like La Rue Inspire that do a lot of community work as well. So I guess just brands that are very embedded in the community are always super inspiring. Again, coming back to like the idea of them being intentional about the impact that they're having in people's lives. So yeah, I would say those are the brands that have inspired me.
Cool. I appreciate those answers. I, again, just think it's interesting to always hear if there's a little bit of impact of something that you see, you sometimes don't realize, but it does impact then maybe how you do something or why. That's actually next what I want to go to is it's really interesting, I think, as we're doing our journey, and even everyone that's, you know, listening right now in the crowd, it's like, it's a journey being a creative entrepreneur. And so the next one I want to go to is, and if we could start with Ash, is like, I know you're really good at helping clients really understand their why. And so if you can maybe first start off with maybe some stories of, you know, how you help some of these clients get a better idea of what they were really trying to do. Because sometimes we don't realize like we're trying to stay more aligned with what we're trying to do, or the real impact or the real intentions from our values, but then we get lost a little bit. So just curious about like some stories where maybe you've helped. And then even, I bet you some of those stories have even helped yourself get a better understanding of what you're trying to do. And then like the same thing would go for you guys. Like, how did you, sometimes like we're going left and then we're okay, back on track, then we're right, then we're back on track. So knowing our why is really important. And I would love to hear like, yeah, just like when you've navigated in different ways and then come back to your core.
Yeah, that's like a super important question to ask yourself when you're building a brand. That's the first thing that we want to discover and like help our clients understand is what is your why. And sometimes, you know, we'll work with people who are just starting out, and for some it's clear right off the bat. Some people know exactly what they want to do, what impact they want to have, and then there are others who go in kind of knowing, but they can't articulate it or really put it into words. And then there are others who are kind of like, oh, I just started a business so I could sell it later. And they're not thinking about it at all. So there's a lot of different scenarios, but we always approach it in the same way where we like you have to talk about it. You have to take the time to talk about it and take the time to think about it. Like, and we make sure that that's part of our process. Like when we're helping clients figure out like what is your why, what is your brand. But yeah, you have to take the time to think about it. And also sometimes you need to actually do the thing. You need to actually like start your business. Sometimes you won't know it right away and you won't really understand the impact of what you do right away until you start. And so for people who, you know, sometimes we recommend people like it's too early. You haven't had the experience of actually knowing and understanding what your business really does and how it actually impacts people and clients. So sometimes you just have to do the thing, like whatever your business is, do it and see how people respond to you and how do you feel and reflect on that. Like, what is that experience that you're creating? How does it make you feel? What, you know, what is the experience that you want to repeat for people, or how do you want to improve on that experience? Because ultimately your why is like, what is that impact and what is that experience that I'm trying to create for people? So it's a difficult question, a very existential question to answer. It's not easy to answer. There's no one way of figuring it out. You kind of just have to experiment and really take your time to think about it.
I agree with Ash. I think definitely finding a way to like nudge yourself back in is like really hard to picture, just because I feel like in reality, your why or like companies in general have to adapt to any circumstance. I think the most obvious one was COVID, right? It shifted a lot of businesses in good ways and bad, as well as, you know, post-COVID, that changed a lot for a lot of people too. But it's always about kind of like staying on your toes when it comes to these things, especially as as an entrepreneur, yes, but as in any business, because it's never a straight line, nor is it linear. But it's always progress. So I think there's always a beauty in that. But for me, I think it's always about adapting, whether it's a crucial change or even a small change. There's always going to be an impact to that. This example is like Costco. You know, they strictly do only in-store shopping, and during COVID, they stayed retail. You know, they refused to do online. Sorry, I'm talking really low, but you know, it's like it's just bubbling in my mind in terms of adaptation, and that's really big. You know, it's really important actually to do that.
For me, I guess I realized that I wanted to have a business that would support the kind of lifestyle that I wanted to live. So I knew early on, well, like it goes back to my surfing addiction. I wanted to have a business that allowed me to go surfing when the waves were good on the East Coast, and also be around people, which is things I love to do, and drinking coffee and just having a fun place to go be during the day, but also being able to just disappear for 3 or 4 days if you're going surfing, and continue to travel. Like I'd love to travel, so I wanted to have that flexibility, and I also, so when I steered away from that sort of why and just tried working all the time, I wasn't as happy. I was just like working myself to the ground, and sometimes I just like, okay, I'm out. I'll see you next week, and just don't try to do it all, and those bills can wait. And yeah, so for me, when I travel, that's when I get the most inspiration. When I'm even just sitting on an airplane coming home from a trip or something, I'm like fired up to come back to work and do some new stuff. So it was important to stick to that.
Something that I want to go off of base of what you just said even is like making sure what we're trying to build with our brand, you know, doesn't become a chore, right? And to make sure that we are allowing, you know, time for play, time to be our most creative selves, Sometimes there's a big misconception, I think, when it comes to branding of, oh, we got to be consistent. We got to post every day. It's like, I actually, personally, for me, I disagree. I think, how could you be remembered consistently every time you put something out? How could you stand out in the most creative, innovative way without forcing it? And, especially there's all these things that come into play. There's trends now, and, it's good because it gives you feedback of, what people like, which is important. So my next question that I'm curious about is, when do you dabble into maybe the trends or the less, how do I say, creative spark, but then also be careful about being like, yeah, but that's really not me, or that's really not my business. Because it is important, I think, to really not get lost of people pleasing, as kind of Mitch said earlier. So I'm curious to hear, it is important to know what people like, as well as, like feedback. I think feedback helps us raise our bar as creative entrepreneurs. But I am curious to know, like, when do you listen to certain things, to get that feedback to help you also maybe eliminate those blind spots, but also without bending who you are too much. So I'd love to hear whoever wants to go first.
To answer that question, it really does come back to the question you asked just before, like knowing your why, knowing yourself, knowing your brand, taking the time to understand what that is. Because like you said, otherwise you're just going to try and please everyone. You're going to spread your brand thin. You're going to dilute your brand. And so, yeah, taking the time to understand your why is super important for that because it becomes your guiding compass, and it becomes the thing that that grounds you. You can always come back to, and to discern what's for you and what's not. When to say no and when to say yes, instead of saying yes to everything, because otherwise it kind of cheapens your brand in a sense, both materially but also like on a experience level. Like when you go to a restaurant and they sell literally everything on the menu, from pizza to General Tao to all sorts of different kinds of food on the menu, you're kind of like, okay, they don't really specialize in anything, and I can't trust that anything is going to be good. At least that's how I think when I go to a restaurant and I see like the menu, there's no focus. So yeah, I think the keyword is that's what really helps you focus. It really helps you focus your brand is understanding like where you're coming from and what you're really trying to do. So
I agree with her. You got to know your brand. You got to know your why. But you can also like not be afraid to try new things. Like a lot of items on a menu thing is a good comparison for me when I think about it as like a buffet. But like what buffet specialize in is to make you full. Like that's kind of like their taste and their take on restauranting. Same thing for us. Like there's a lot of cringe culture stuff on the internet, and it's very hard to not give in for clicks or whatever and stuff. But if you're confident enough to bring it out and you know it, or you accept that it's part of your branding, I speak for myself as a small brand as well, hopefully going to medium. But bigger brands definitely don't have like the luxury to do memes, but they do, right? You learn that a lot when you do case studies on brands, TikTok, whatever. Like, I'm gonna name drop a brand, but like Acne Studios, like you can perceive it as a European brand, blah blah, but they do memes, so like they give in, and it's okay. I think that's another thing is it's not that deep, when especially on social media, it's never going to be the best version of yourself, and you have to remember that too. A lot of people have a lot of taste, but it's also fine to not be too serious about these things.
Yeah, I guess I go back to the why often when any decision that we're faced with, whether that's extending our hours to serve more customers or opening a new location. We just think, well, is this to make money? Because that was never been the goal. And you might potentially make less money and just create more stress for yourself. Opening up later, we're like, well, I've always thought of September as like a lifestyle brand, and we want our staff to have a certain lifestyle. So if we're staying open later, then they're just going to be overworked and less happy. Yeah, just we want people to be happy at work, and that's what we need to sometimes remind ourselves. And every September we close the shop for 3 days and take our staff on a trip. Just even though that's the busiest month of the year, just because we want to bring everyone together and make them feel that they're like part of something special. So.
Also, I just want to add, like, brands in general are also people. So, like, I know I'm going back to the social media stuff, but like memes are also could be something that a person in that company likes, and like that's okay because it's relatable to them. It doesn't have to be about us or about the viewer. It's also about internal too. You get what I mean?
I think my next thing I want to go to is something that I have seen common amongst the three of you is in different ways how you've given back to community. I've seen obviously September do a lot of different type of events in their space over the years, as well as STEM Bar as well. And David, obviously I've already mentioned, even just like from running events to other events that you've done. And then I find what's really interesting, Ash, about you is like you've also, some of the brands that you work with are doing really impactful work in the community. And I find the reason why I'm bringing this up, this pillar of like community is, that was something that personally, like for me, that I was struggling in my creative entrepreneurship journey. I'm doing this podcast, bringing on great people across the world and having an impact on online community, which is great, which is beautiful. And it's supporting my business. But I was missing this, like the impact to learn from people that are in my city and to share that with other people around that are close by. And so I'm curious, like when you think about community, and how that plays a role in your brand to even resonate on a deeper level. So like I even said before, like, I have friends and it's cool that they happen to know you who don't even live in Montreal, but the real people that will show up to your business day after day, or I call like even like your OG fans or stuff like that, like your loyal customers, they're typically the ones closest to you, right? So I am curious to get your opinion on community and how that is important both online, but then also in person. And feel free to say as little or as much how you've made that happen. And don't hesitate at all to share a story, because I think that will resonate with the audience, right? Because they're all doing really freaking cool stuff. And to just get, to hear kind of, and yeah, to kind of hear what you guys are doing.
Community. So I would say community, both online and offline, like you said. Oftentimes when we think of community, especially nowadays, we tend to focus online, which isn't a bad thing. Like there's so many amazing digital tools and platforms, and it's a great way to expose yourself and your brand to the world. But it's also very, very oversaturated and becoming more and more oversaturated. It can create an overwhelming experience because people are just scrolling. You're competing with a lot of different stuff going on. And so I think it's really important to also take the time to cultivate community in real life. Even if it's not as large of a scale, you can still use that to kind of build authentic connections with people in real life, and that can have a ripple effect and a greater impact in the long run. Community is super important to your brand. One way that I get involved in the community, obviously the companies that we work with we're very picky about the people. Well, I wouldn't say picky, but we like working with people who want to have an impact, whether that be on a large scale or on a local scale or just I want to be an amazing place for people to work. Like that's impact, that's intentional impact that you want to have in your community and people's lives. And I think that's super important to, for me, because it makes my work meaningful and it means that I'm helping someone have an impact in people's lives. And I'm part of that. I'm a small part of that ripple effect. So that's really meaningful to me. And then also, we do workshops and to give back to, local businesses and help them understand their branding, as well as just create like a representation for people who are entrepreneurs as well and want to start their own thing. And so that's one way that we get involved on a personal level. And yeah, I'd say that's it for me.
Community is big. I grew up, well, like I said, I'm Filipino, so I grew up in a really religious background. Well, religion is big in the Philippines, that's for sure. She knows that. But, because of that, you kind of like understand what it is to be amongst people and stuff, and kind of finding a place where um, you feel a little bit better, but also to make it more understandable. Like people say, like the shop was a closet. It's like a church, to be honest, because it's a place where people go in and appreciate. It's like there's a common ground of what they appreciate, which is the clothes. But also, like you just talk to people about clothes, and like that's how you kind of create the connection with others. We're very thankful that there's a lot of people who like clothes, but a lot of people who just like to learn, and people come in to do these events as well as we throw our own events. Um, but it's also good to highlight your community. Um, you learn the best thing. Well, my favorite thing when it comes to these events is you learn something out of it, which I've had a lot with the people that come to see us, or even today. And it's the impact for me, that community and impact is like the same, or like it kind of plays with each other. um, because you're not gonna there's a lot of communities, but you don't really, sometimes you don't mix with one. And it's always about the experience or the impact that you get from one another that basically makes you want to stay. You know what I mean?
I mean, for us as a cafe, it's pretty much everything, and it's like I'd say the reason why we are where we are today is community and the support, and so many regulars that have been coming every day, or very often, and we when COVID hit, we really felt that support from a lot of people that were still coming and lining up to get coffee and breakfast sandwiches from the street, and some people just wanted to give us money. They were like, can we just prepay for when we can come back inside? And I found that really touched me. I was like, that's so nice. And unfortunately, that was a difficult year. And in the fall, we decided to do a golf tournament to bring people together, just because golf was one of the only activities you could do because it's outside. So we started a golf tournament, and it's now 5 years running every fall. And proceeds go to the Trevor Williams Kids Foundation. Trevor is one of our regulars, and he's teaching basketball to kids in the neighborhood. So we support that every year, and yeah, we just get so much support, so we want to give back. I find that's very important for us.
I'm going to add as well, like I appreciate those answers, but even, I was asked today by a fellow creative entrepreneur, even like, hey, how did you meet all these people here today? And it's like, well, to be honest, okay, half the people, yes, I have known through, just showing up and giving to community and being the person that I want to be, and to hopefully spark other like-minded individuals. But then there's a whole nother set of people that are here today that are just so interesting to learn more about, where, if it weren't for maybe just following your heart, I think is a big thing. When we think about community, it's people coming together, it's wanting to truly be there. And so it's been beautiful to see how you guys have done that. Really appreciate you guys too, just being here on this panel today, and it's really my goal, like just before closing off like today's panel, where like we're all on like the same level here, right? There's no pedestal at all. So that's kind of why like the next little bit of time I think first, let's kind of hear a big round of applause to our speakers.